Hello and welcome to Bharat Shakti.in. I'm Brig SK Chatterji. We're going to be back with our neighborhood watch series now, and the focus this time will be on Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. A very interesting chapter, a very interesting story that we're going to narrate to you. And to narrate the whole story, I have with me none other than Lieutenant General PR Shankar. General Shankar has been the Director General Artillery when he was in the armed forces before his retirement. And thereafter, he's been with the IIT Madras with its Aerospace Department as a professor there. Welcome to the show, General.
Thanks a lot, sir, and thanks for inviting me onto the Bharat Shakti platform. It's been a long time and a great
Uh,
pleasure.
General, we're going to be talking, like I said, about a very interesting topic. A lot was expected when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. A lot of it didn't really happen. Now, my first issue is, this totalitarian countries, they tend to use this formula of nationalism far too much. And it's not always for the nation. In the case of the communists, it's always first for the party. And beyond that, if you see, they use it for the leadership uses it for, well, uh, you're getting a longer innings perhaps or gaining more popularity. And that is where perhaps Xi Jinping has been playing a very fine game. So in the bargain, there was a lot of rhetoric that was there before Nancy Pelosi really he landed there at Taipei, but that rhetoric was enough to build a huge fervor there in the masses in China, expecting almost a hard military option being exercised by China, but it did not happen. So possibly the whole town is downcast, as you can say. So, what's happening there in China streets? How are the people taking it? Is what I want you to tell us about.
Yes, sir. Nationalism is a double-edged sword. I mean, we've all known it from long. And in this case, right from Xi Jinping, when he said, "Don't play with fire," it's a will of 1.4 billion people. And then their Wolf Warrior spokesman Zhao Lijian and Global Times editor Hu Zijian. All these chaps have built up as if, like you said, they're going to be hard military options. They were also said Nancy Pelosi's plane will be escorted by PLA fighters into Taiwan, and that will herald the invasion of Taiwan. Okay, now look, this is what New York Times had put out. They said perils of preaching nationalism play out in the social media. It's been done. What they've said is many users have mocked the government for not taking military action after all this hype to stop Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan trip, saying it's not lived up to tough rhetoric. Now, look, it doesn't happen often when Chinese say publicly they're disappointed with the government, and in this case they've said it. And some of them have said they're ashamed of the government. Some want to renounce their communist party membership. That's serious. And what's more, they also think that PLA is a waste of taxpayers' money. That's how people are looking at it. Okay. Well, on Monday and Tuesday last, Chinese applauded the tough rhetoric from the government, military, and media personalities to stop Nancy Pelosi's visit. But as Pelosi's plane touched down, they started expressing disappointment and how lame Beijing's response was. I mean, someone's written, look at it. Don't put on a show of power if you don't have the power. Okay, and he ended with saying, "What a loss of face." If the ordinary man thinks it's a loss of face, what does Xi Jinping think? It's a total egg on his face. Now, this is even funnier. Some users have compared the PLA to the Chinese soccer team. He says it's a laughing stock because this great nation has qualified in World Cup only once. Okay. Now, when all these exercises which PLA announced it immediately that they'll do live firing, all these zones and all that. And what someone has said is save some gas. It's very expensive now, responded another. Look at the irony and this coming out of a controlled system like China, where information flow is this thing. It is telling. Then they said so tough when it comes to domestic governance and so cowardly in foreign affairs. utterly disappointed. Now, these are extreme views. Some might say it's less. I don't say so. I'll tell you why. Uh, this is the extracts from the New York Times. The very next day, South China Morning Post has come out with a similar headline, and it has echoed whatever New York Post has said. They've said that China has been bragging more about its military prowess, economic prowess, and industrial capacity than actually it is. Okay, so this is important. And what's more, there are anti-war voices which have come from the social media, right? And some people say these warmongers should be sent to the front lines. Now, parents are worried that their children are conscripted. This is very important because we should understand that China is a one-child nation. After the time, 72, 73, when the one-child policy was implemented, from then to now, we have only one-child families. So if the only breadwinner in that family goes and gets killed in war, what will be the effect of the family? In a system where there is no adequate social network, social net, okay, safety net for the aged people, and pensions are not there. Their pension system, if they don't do something, is going to run out shortly, and that's their news. Now, the others are also saying you can start a war like what happened in Russia and Ukraine, and then what happens after that? What happens if this whole process continues for say 2 months, 3 months? They get into Taiwan and they can't get out. Okay, without a proper exit strategy, they'll be doing an auto blockade of themselves. In which case, their trade will get hit, right?
Right. The next issue that I have really, is what actions have the Chinese taken so far to register, well, let's call it their frustrations, to register their frustrations, I would say, post Pelosi's visit. There are a couple of exercises which are on. There are also talk about some problems that the Chinese are trying to create in the EEZ of the Japanese also. So if you could give us an idea about what is on and why, can we expect some more?
Yeah. Immediately after the visit, and in fact during the visit itself, the Chinese announced a set of war games. Right? They said they'll do some firing, and they also banned some imports from Taiwan. But then that's a double-edged weapon because imports from Taiwan could hurt them also. And some diplomatic actions have taken place. Immediately, PLA launched, within this. In fact, they've announced exercises till Sunday, that is tomorrow. They've launched 11 DF missiles into waters off Taiwan in this, but it's all in water, it's nothing on land. And some of these missiles have landed up in the Japanese EEZ. With that, the Japanese are now riled up. Okay. Now, can we have that slide back, please? Okay. Now, this is what they've said. You look at the map on the right. Around Taiwan, there are now six red boxes into which the firing has been planned or naval exercises have been planned and war games have been planned and they've noticed it. This amounts to a virtual blockade of Taiwan. Okay, now what New York Times has said, which is the left one, more than a show, China's exercises help it practice seizing Taiwan. They feel that China is putting a squeeze on Taiwan, and this is a revision. This is a preparatory exercise for the ultimate invasion of Taiwan. They'll get exercise which PLA sorely lacks. Well, that's one view. But what's the use of firing all around a country without touching it? It shows your incapability to do anything. You see, if you see on the left between the mainland and Taiwan, there are small islands called Kinmen Island and Matsu Islands. These are just about 5 to 6 kilometers away from the mainland, and they're Taiwanese territory. They can be grabbed anytime. Just walk across. But China has not been able to do even that. Right? So it shows the Chinese limitations at military affairs, going military. And like I said, China, as they plan the drills and they're carrying them out, US officials fear a squeeze play. The US assessment that is that China's strategy is to intimidate and coerce. We all know that, and without triggering a direct conflict. Right. Now, the next thing is important. Despite threats made in recent weeks, it would still be a very difficult task for PLA Navy and costly to China's economy to maintain a blockade for an extended period of time. Similar effect on Beijing. I mean, if you surround Taipei, there will be others, like USA and Australia and Japan who will get into the fray, and South Korea also eventually, and maybe even Philippines, who will deploy their ships around this blockade, which means that mainland China is blockaded, which means shipping will not go out of China. Their exports will get this thing. So it's going to hurt them badly. Right? So at some point of time, this whole story will become counterproductive. Take the slide off. Okay. This whole, at some point of time, this entire thing will become counterproductive. Now, diplomatically, the G7 has, issued its concern about this whole story. Even Japan has done that, and as a result, the the Chinese have, berated the G7. Their Wang Yi, their foreign minister, was attending the ASEAN conference where Japan and USA were there. He's walked out of that. Thereafter, a whole range of interactions between USA and China on climate change and global warming and things like that have been cancelled. They were their normal military to military contact, which is on periodically, routine. All those have been called off. So China has taken a hard stand on this. It's like they're huffing and puffing in one thing, and now they're showing their frustration is coming out through their anger. Right. We'll see where it goes. They also, slapped some sanctions on Pelosi. Right. So then the next question is: will they go to war? Will they risk war? We all know war is a high risk proposition. Will they risk war when there's an economic slowdown? Their real estate is in a slump, it's in a bad slump, and consider that real estate is 30% of their economy. And it's right, we've heard of banking stress, failed banks, their BRI is collapsing. Their international influence is weakening. Look at what has happened in Sri Lanka. Well, look what has happened in Pakistan, where Pakistan, they are not helping Pakistan at all. There is also a thing that they have an aging and declining population. Their consumption has gone weak. There are job losses and pay cuts. And this is not, my imagination, but from Chinese news sources, right? And then they have this 20th Party Congress in November, which seems to be all pervading in their story. So they will not upset anything. So will they go to war? I don't think so. Right? But then all this could be a precursor to a war maybe sometime later down the line, but that's to be seen. Right? So this is where China stands. Can't do more. Even if whatever it has done has stoked the nationalism on the other side, there's a national disappointment.
Okay, let's go a little forward. Let's think ahead a bit. China has obviously mishandled this Taiwan issue. It's been mishandling it now for decades together. I would say, if you recall, in 1990, perhaps the opposition to Taiwan ultimately joining the mainland wasn't there as much as you see post Hong Kong. And I would say one big factor that's played with the Taiwanese people is the way Hong Kong has been handled by China. Over the years, there have been less and less, adaptable. The Chinese have been less and less adaptable to the processes in Hong Kong, and they've tried to impose the same kind of a thing which is there in China onto Hong Kong. Now, the Chinese population today, Taiwanese population today, is more for independence. In fact, at the best, some of them are for status quo, but nobody's thinking really of merger perhaps with the mainland anymore. What do you have to say? Your comments?
Look, what you said, sir, is absolutely right. Till the Kuomintang was in power, they thought they should, merge with the mainland. And this uh, President Tsai Ing-wen's party is absolutely for independence, and that's why they won. Increasingly younger people, okay, are more for independence and moving away from the mainland, and they're in the anti-merger. You also have to understand the economics. Economically, Taiwan is much more richer individually per capita wise than China. Why would they give up their economic riches to go and become part of mainland and fund the mainland? Because the PRC will take benefit of that. And then why would they give up democracy, their freedom? Today they have the benefit of getting some good status from many countries, right? Okay, and then of course there are other issues also involved, that people have got used to freedom. They'll not now go back wouldn't like to go back to the mainland. Look, there's another issue. You look at it from the Chinese perspective. What does a normal Chinese uh, guy think? He has been promised, happiness, wealth, etc., etc., by the Chinese government, and he's given up his freedoms for it. Now, what he is seeing, that he is not getting that economic benefit which he has been promised, and he doesn't have freedom. On the other hand, the Taiwanese, a democratic Taiwanese, is richer and has more freedoms and is leading a better life. So there's a contrast. The promise of China is flat. And this contrast, if you play it the other way around, the Taiwanese see the poor Chinaman on the mainland who's struggling for his jobs. Economy is in a slump. They don't have chips, which they have. And Taiwan exports most its export surplus. It exports most of its items, including food and agricultural items, to the mainland. Why would they give it up? And in fact, the way I look at it, the Chinese want to get hold of Taiwan for this reason. Then the mainland then doesn't have the feeling that here is my country cousin who's democratic, free, and richer than me, so that a reverse nationalism doesn't start here and the democratic bug doesn't bite into China.
Right. One last question, General, and that's about, we've been very circumspect. I'm talking about India being very quiet as far as this whole incident is concerned. We watched from the sidelines. We haven't really got into the arena with any opinions, at least. So, but what are our takeaways? Have we got certain takeaways from this kind of an incident?
I think there are huge takeaways and there are huge issues which we need to put into the forefront. We've always known that if China, and there's my way of looking at it, if China does not get hold of Taiwan in the next 3 to 4 years, it will turn to India. Conflict with India is on the cards. What level of conflict is a different story, but why? Invading Taiwan and taking it has got its major benefit, but the most important benefit is that it would have kept USA away, and it would getting hold of Taiwan is a defeat of USA. If that happens, China is the global superpower, number one. Now, if that can't be done, what will it do next? It has to beat its next peer competitor, India. There's no other peer competitor to China today. We all know that. So then it will turn to India. Only then that will China get recognition of being a major power, right? So to that extent, I think whatever is happening in Taiwan has got a very important bearing on how we have to behave. and the impact on us. Now you will connect it to what's happening closer at home. In the past 1 month, if you've seen, China has become more aggressive on the LAC. When the 16th round of core commanders meeting was taking place, they had fired missiles, long range missiles, in high altitude on the same day. That's a signal. Okay. I would call it the missile diplomacy or the gunboat, I would say gunpoint diplomacy, what they're trying today with Taiwan. But they did it a little. Then there were air violations, near air violations. There were air violations to the extent that the 10-kilometer distance was breached. And only yesterday, I think the Air Force representatives on both sides have had a talk and said, stop it. But they continued, they're showing some intent. Then they said they'll build a highway along the LAC, which has come out. And then the process of building it. And they also, if you remember, NDTV had put out that Pangda village expansion into Bhutan. Now, look, NDTV says it's got an image from somewhere, but my guess is that it has been leaked out. It is giving us a message. You link all these together, and also the spy ship which is entering Hambantota, which is likely to enter Hambantota port on 11th. There is some activity there. We'll see. That is a different story. You put all this, you can't count China out. In fact, if they don't make headway in Taiwan, the axe might come on us. They have to. I mean, this is a geopolitical compulsion for them. So in this, what do we do? Obviously, so far we've been a little muted and we are underplaying our hand. We are waiting. But also remember that we are doing everything to keep China out of Sri Lanka. Right? And we are making an outreach to the Middle East where China has made inroads through that I2U2 deal. Okay? So there are things which are happening which are not said. We don't have to brag about it. Right. Additionally, our external affairs minister and the foreign secretary of USA, Anthony Blinken, have had a word with each other in that ASEAN meet. Okay. There is a strategy at play. He has come out. Anthony Blinken has come out with a statement that says India is our closest strategic partner in this area and we are on the same page. So you're not kept quiet for this time. You've been silent in words, but more in action, which I think is a smart play, right? And
Right.
I think we know which side of the bread is buttered for us, and we'll play accordingly. But we'll see how the things go.
Right, I think that was very interesting in analysis of the situation, and especially this last question that I had posed for you. That what are the takeaways for us? That very very well and explained to all our viewers. Thank you so much for joining BharatShakti.in and spending your time, channel.
Thanks a lot, sir. It's always been a pleasure to talk with you. You've been my old mentor. And of course, Bharat Shakti. We look forward to more interactions. And thank you, viewers.
Thanks, Jill. And thank you, viewers. Thanks for logging on to BharatShakti.in. Do go to our social media pages and do go through our YouTube channel, and you will find such interesting stories all along as you go.